Good afternoon. We welcome you today to another educational and exciting and empowering Bible study at Trinity United Church of Christ, Gary. As you know, this is the month of October. And it's during this month that we have been celebrating, honoring, learning about domestic violence awareness. As you know, or maybe there are some new visitors visiting with us today, October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Did you know that? Yes. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This is the time when we reflect on what is it that we as the Christian church are called to be, as well as what are we called to do in light of domestic violence that exists in our communities today. We want to invite you during this time to turn your attention to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. If you or someone you know has been victimized by domestic violence, please break the silence. Contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their telephone number is 1-800-799-SAFE. Again, their phone number is 1-800-799-SAFE or 7233. You can also visit their website and feel free to pass their website along. It's www.thehotline.org, www.thehotline.org. And so, in honor of October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we want to spend some time highlighting particular scriptures in our passage that are what some would say is wonderful stories to help us think about domestic violence in its present day form or our current society. There is a wonderful book that we want to invite you to check out. There's a wonderful book that we want to invite you to check out. The name of this book is called Texts of Terror. Texts of Terror, Literary Feminist Readings of Biblical Narratives. It's by a wonderful feminist theologian by the name of Phyllis Tribble. This is a hidden jewel. In this book, there are 4 stories that this book covers. The first story is the story of Hagar, as she is physically assaulted by Sarah and Hagar's plight, running away from her assaulters into the wilderness as a pregnant woman of color. She will later bear the child of Ishmael. Second story that this book highlights is the story of, unfortunately, the rape of Tamar at the hands of her stepbrother, Abdonah. And that is a wonderful story that invites us to rethink or reimagine how we understand sexual assault. Another story featured in this book is the unnamed woman and the violence that she incurs. It's told in Judges chapter 19, verses 1 through 30. Many of us today have never even heard of that story before. Please, if you haven't heard of that story before, I invite you to read it. Judges chapter 19, verses 1 through 30. And last but not least, and this will be the focus story for us today, this book features the story of Jephthah's daughter, as outlined in Judges chapter 11. And so if you don't have this wonderful selection, I want to invite you to please check out this wonderful selection. We've talked about domestic violence in all its many shapes and forms. We've talked about domestic violence from the perspective of physical assault. We've also talked about domestic violence during this month around the issue of sexual violence. We've also talked about domestic violence in various other shapes and fashions and forms. And so today, we're going to spend some time talking about domestic violence as it relates specifically to child abuse. That's right, child abuse. Why? Because our particular story in Judges chapter 11, all about Jephthah's daughter, highlights this dynamic of child abuse. You've heard the story before. Let me explain the story to you. You've heard it before. If you haven't, here are some details we want to highlight in the story. If you go and look in this good book of Judges chapter 11, you'll read the story about a gentleman. He is a military warrior. He's a military leader in a war. In these moments, I'm reminded of our great African-American general who recently departed this earth on yesterday. I'm reflecting on the life of Colin Powell. And so I am told in this Judges chapter 11 story that there's a gentleman named Jephthah. And he is currently in battle with the Ammonites. And he's afraid. He's nervous. Why? Because the Ammonites, they are a country that has many military resources. They also have a larger army. They have more people in their army than Jephthah has in his army. And so he's afraid. He's scared. He's afraid. He's scared. He knows he wants to win this war. But out of his fear, he begins to make a petition to the Lord. And this petition, we will find out later, will get him in a lot of trouble and cause him to experience much grief. He turns to heaven and asks the Lord, Lord, if you allow me to win this battle, because I believe I'm going to lose it, the first thing that comes running out of my front door when I arrive home will be offered as a sacrifice to you. That's right. Jephthah makes this petition, this plea, this solemn prayer and covenant to God. If you allow me to win this war, the first thing that runs out of my front door, I will sacrifice to you. Unbeknownst to Jephthah, he wins the war and he's so happy and he's celebrating and he goes home and you wouldn't believe it. The first thing that runs out of his door is his daughter. His daughter runs out of the front door and she's congratulating him and saying, Dad, I'm so happy you won the war. And our text in Judges chapter 11 tells us that immediately our brother Jephthah is filled with sorrow and grief and loss because he's remembering now this solemn promise that he made to the Lord. With tears in his eyes, his daughter says, what's wrong, Dad? And he explains to his daughter what he has just done. And he explains to his daughter, I just made this solemn promise to the Lord. Now, there are many points. I'm going to pause here in the telling of the story. There are many points that we need to reflect on today. The first point that is important for us to reflect on is, how do we manage our anxiety and emotions? Now, it is okay to feel sad, mad, scared. Don't allow anybody to tell you that you shouldn't feel sad, mad, or scared. According to a wonderful pastoral counselor by the name of Gloria Wilcox. That last name is spelled Willcox. Gloria Wilcox. According to Gloria Wilcox, we are human, and as human beings, we experience 6 major feelings: sad, mad, scared, peaceful, joyful, powerful. That's right. Sad, mad, scared, peaceful, joyful, powerful. No matter what your race or ethnicity or nationality is, no matter what your gender or class or sexual orientation is, Gloria Wilcox believes that all human beings experience 6 major feelings: sad, mad, scared, peaceful, joyful, powerful. So she created this cool image you see on your screen called the feeling wheel. I'm going to invite you to Google that and save on your mobile device and your photos your own version of the feeling wheel. She created this feeling wheel, and I'm gonna make this feeling wheel larger on your screen so that you can see the second and third circles inside of this wheel. She says, if we were to look at scared, you also have little baby cousins related to these larger feelings: sad, mad, scared, peaceful, joyful, powerful. And she says it's rare that people will say, oh, I feel scared, or I feel sad, or I feel mad. She says, but they will say a little baby cousin or relative of these feelings, such as, if I'm looking at what Jephthah felt as he is battling in war with the Ammonites, scared. Sometimes scared shows up as confused, rejected, helpless, submissive, insecure, anxious. Sometimes scared shows up as bewildered, discouraged, insignificant, inadequate, embarrassed, overwhelmed. Now, popular culture today in our church world would say to us, you shouldn't feel sad, mad, or scared. Those are quote unquote negative feelings. Those are feelings that are bad. They're not good. You always should feel peaceful, joyful, or powerful. And we say, no, that's not true. According to Gloria Wilcox, all feelings matter. So when someone says to you, I feel scared, or they use one of those little baby cousins of scared, like bewildered or insignificant, it was terrible. It is harmful. It is unhealthy for you to say, what's wrong? Why are you feeling scared? Where is your faith? Or it is unhealthy. It is wrong. It is bad for you to say, God did not give you a spirit of fear. God did not give us the spirit of fear. No, please don't respond like that. When someone tells you that they are scared, our response is to be, how can I give you a sense of encouragement or reassurance during this time? And so our brother Jephthah is feeling a little scared. And instead of thinking about how he can manage his emotions and how he can, in a healthy way, calm himself down, he ends up making a bargain, a terrible, terrible covenant. He ends up praying to God, if you would allow me to win this war, the first thing that comes running out of my door, I will sacrifice that to you. So one point, or the first point that this text teaches us, is how do we control our emotions? When we find ourselves feeling scared, how do we say to ourselves, what would give me a sense of encouragement and reassurance during this time? It's okay to feel scared. Don't allow anybody to tell you that you shouldn't feel scared. You are human. However, it's not okay to participate in unhealthy behaviors when we're scared. And this is what Jephthah does. Jephthah participates in an unhealthy behavior. He makes an unhealthy promise to God. He begins to overtalk. And so a second reflective question in our text for us today is, when you are scared, how do you manage your anxiety so that you won't get yourself in deeper trouble by over-functioning, doing some things you're not supposed to do, over-talking, saying some things you're not supposed to say? There are so many negative behaviors that people participate in, all in the name of fear or scare, all in the name of fear and scare. And so we must begin to learn how to properly manage our emotions. What are some activities that you could do to properly manage your emotions and care for yourself? I'm going to ask that you please grab pen and paper and write this down. Write this down. Write this down. When you are feeling scared, when you are feeling nervous, when you find yourself feeling scared and feeling nervous, there are certain things that you can do. There are certain things that you can do. And these particular items or things that you could do, we say, is practicing healthy self-care. Practicing healthy self-care. I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, but Danielle, what is healthy self-care? I know you're going to say that. I know you're going to say that. First and foremost, there are many forms of healthy self-care that you can practice. Here are some examples. We say, first and foremost, when you feel as if you're in a crisis, just like Jephthah, and you feel as if you're getting ready to do something or say something that's inappropriate and that's unhealthy, we say, please practice healthy self-care. Let me give you an example. There are some wonderful strategies and interventions you could employ. First and foremost, we say it's important to fuel your body with food that gives you energy and helps you improve mentally and physically. So when you're scared, it's important to eat healthy. To eat healthy. Why? Because eating healthy food gives you energy and helps your mental thought process. Helps your mental thought process. More than anything, it helps your mental thought process. When you feel scared, another strategy or intervention is to drink some water. Settle yourself, settle your hormones by drinking some water. Number 3, we say, be kind to yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so critical of yourself. Don't beat yourself up. We also say, when you're feeling scared, set boundaries. Say to yourself, okay, this is what I can do. This is what I can't do. There are many pastoral psychotherapists reading Judges 11 who say one response Jephthah could have done or responded with this battle is to simply say, you know what? If I lose, I lose. Let me set some boundaries. I don't have to win. If I lose this war to the Ammonites, it's okay. I'm not going to say anything or do anything that violates boundaries that'll now push me further and further down a pit that I won't be able to crawl myself out of. How many people know it's so important when you're scared to set boundaries so that you don't find yourself doing something or saying something that's inappropriate that will get you further and further in a rut. Next, when you feel scared, spend time with people that will enrich your life. Spend time with people that will love on you, not people who will be critical of you, but people who will love you and support you and encourage you, not people who will talk about you, criticize you, and say little things to hurt your feelings like you shouldn't be feeling scared. We also say, when you're feeling scared, treat yourself to something new. to show yourself that you love yourself, even in the midst of feeling scared. Even in the midst of feeling scared. And last but not least, when you're feeling scared, exercise, move your body, stretch, participate in yoga, go for a walk, go for a bike ride. It's so important when you're feeling scared to practice what we call is real self-care and avoid what we call is fake self-care, that which is not real. We also say feeling sad, mad, and scared is a normal feelings or emotions that we may need to seek mental health therapy around. I wonder what would have happened if Jephthah would have went and visited a therapist. I wonder what would have happened if Jephthah would have went and visited a therapist. So as he's preparing for this war, I wonder what would have happened if he would have went and sought consultation from a therapist. We have so many needs in our African-American community. And when we feel sad, mad, or scared, we have a responsibility to seek out mental health counseling. Notice, I did not say pastoral counseling. I said mental health counseling. And so we want to encourage you to check out these particular websites. These websites feature African-American therapists who will help you learn how to manage successfully your emotions when you're feeling sad, mad, or scared. So, as our story goes, back to Judges 11. Jephthah tells his daughter, I promised the Lord that the first thing that would run out of my house, I would sacrifice. And what do you think Jephthah's daughter says? Jephthah's daughter is lamenting and sad and grieving this when she hears these words from her father. But she turns to her father and she says, Dad, you must fulfill your promises to God. You must fulfill your promises to God. And so Jephthah says, okay, I will do it. And his daughter simply says, but give me 2 months to go play with my friends and have a good time with my friends. And then I will come back home and you can go ahead and sacrifice me to the Lord. Now, the irony in this text, I'm going to tell you something that is going to turn this text upside down for you. The irony in this text is Jephthah could have prayed to God and said to the Lord, Lord, forgive me, but I will not commit child abuse and kill my daughter. Give me grace and give me mercy. Is there anything else I can do to keep my commitment to you? But ironically, Jephthah never says that. Our text never says that Jephthah pleads with the Lord and asks the Lord for grace and mercy. So this becomes an interesting topic for us today, to reflect theologically on grace and mercy. I wonder how this story would have been different if Jephthah would have, in the spirit of humility, reached out to God and asked for grace and mercy and said, no, I cannot sacrifice my only daughter, my only child. I wonder how this text would have been different if Jephthah would have taken serious not sacrificing the life of a Black woman, his daughter, a woman of color. I wonder, in what ways do we sacrifice our sisters today in our community? In what ways do we use their bodies as sacrificial lambs to keep up with promises and covenants that we think we need to keep up with the Lord? This text invites us, pushes us, challenges us to reflect on what are the ways in which we use women's bodies as sacrifices when maybe that's not what the Lord requires of us. And so here's some other reflective questions for you to reflect on today. How do you understand grace and mercy? Why couldn't Jephthah just plead with God for grace and mercy to spare the life of his daughter? How do you understand grace and mercy? Do you give yourself grace and mercy? Or do you simply just take life at whatever life hands at you and accept it? Why not ask God for grace and mercy to help you out of a perilous predicament? Another reflective question is, how do you take serious making sure you don't sacrifice the life and body of another person for your own means? In some sense, by Jephthah not requesting grace and mercy from God to not kill his daughter, he simply sees his daughter's body as a sacrificial pawn in his own desires to keep this covenant with God. Literally, Jephthah decides to desire to sacrifice his daughter's body, all in the name of the Lord and wanting to keep this covenant with the Lord. What are you doing in your life that is causing you to sacrifice other people's body, sacrifice other people's lives, sacrifice the life of a Black woman, and sacrifice the life of maybe even your child? What are you sacrificing, even in the name of the Lord? Thinking it's okay for me to treat this person this way. It's okay for me to commit violence to this person because the Lord requires it based on an oath I've taken with the Lord. We must also reflect on, how are we justifying violence in the name of the Lord? Because we believe this is what the Lord commands of us. I'm reminded of our current Israel and Palestine conflict. If you would talk to any person who believes that God is on the side of Israel, sometimes these particular persons also believe that therefore, if God is on the side of Israel, then God ordains me being violent to Palestine. In the so-called United States of America, we usually side with Israel and the government Israel against Palestinians. And so even we have unfortunately committed atrocities against our Palestinian brothers because we believe that God ordained it. I was reading recently about the biography of Colin Powell, and he began to, later on in life, lament the wars that he co-signed under the Bush administration when he was Secretary of State in general for the United States. He began to lament the ways in which he had, even in the name of the Lord, co-signed and participated in wars against Palestinian brothers and sisters. And he would later repent of this later on in his life. This text with Jephthah asks us to reflect on, why couldn't Jephthah know, learn, understand, or feel convicted around wanting to sacrifice his daughter's body, all in the name of a promise he made to the Lord? And it invites us to think about, what promises are we making that we're believing is okay for us, ordained by the Lord, when really it's being violent to someone else's body? And so our text goes on to say that after 2 months of playing with her friends, the daughter returns home, and all of a sudden, after the daughter returns home, All of a sudden, all of a sudden, all of a sudden, yes, Jephthah sacrifices her body. What a sad, sad, sad story. This story invites us to reflect on child abuse, among other topics of discussion. Not only does it invite us to think about abuse towards women, but it also invites us to think about child abuse. Child abuse. According to the Centers for Disease Control, these are the statistics on child abuse and neglect. Approximately 683,000 victims of child abuse and neglect are reported to Child Protective Services in 2015. It is estimated that the total lifetime cost of child abuse and neglect is $124 billion each year. It is estimated that about 1,670 children die as a result of child abuse every year. Can you imagine 1,600 children dying as a result of child abuse in our past? And it's also estimated that the youngest children are the most vulnerable, with about 24% of children in their first year of life experiencing victimization and child abuse. We must begin to say no to child abuse. We must begin to say no to child abuse. We must begin to challenge our brothers and sisters who believe that child abuse is the way and say, no, 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 no. Child abuse is wrong. And child abuse creates some psychological traumas for children that survive the abuse. What are you talking about, Danielle? Well, I'm so glad that you asked. We are discovering there is a term called ACEs. ACEs. What is ACEs? The term ACEs, that's an acronym for ACES. The term ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. We are discovering in our society today that many children experience three types of ACEs: abuse, neglect, household dysfunction. Abuse, neglect, household dysfunction. And what makes these ACEs very, very hard or difficult is that these ACEs now contribute to early childhood death. I'm sorry, not early childhood death, early adult death. If a child experiences these ACEs in life, this will increase the statistics of them dying at an early age. What do I mean by that? We're discovering that ACEs leads to early death among people. That's right. Can you believe it? ACEs leads to early death among people. What do I mean by that? I'd like for you to look at this next image. We believe that ACEs contributes to an early death. Look at this. Look at this pyramid on your screen. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. Because of generational or historic trauma, which for us as African Americans could be African enslavement, as well as social conditions such as poverty, unemployment, underemployment, lack of affordable health care, and on top of ACEs, early childhood experiences, people will now experience a disruption in their neurological development. They can also experience social and emotional cognitive impairment. They can also now participate in unhealthy, risky health behaviors like smoking, or drinking or sexual promiscuity. All these are considered unhealthy health risks. Drug abuse of some sort, which will then lead to disease, disability, and social problems, which finally leads to an early death. So the reflective question for us all today is, how do we resist participating in acts of child abuse? How do we resist staying quiet when we notice acts of child abuse? Because if we don't say something, if we don't advocate for our children, we will stand by as they experience an early death from debilitating diseases and social problems, unhealthy, risky behavior that they participate in, social and emotional cognitive impairment, and a disruptive neurological development. And so it is so very important, my brothers and sisters, that we say no. We challenge child abuse in all its shapes or forms. Let me also throw another caveat in. Child abuse is often a hard question or conversation for us to grapple with in the African-American community, because we believe in physically disciplining our children. Physically disciplining our children. And this is a form of child abuse. This is a form of child abuse. According to Dr. Joy DeGruy, the act of physically disciplining your child through spankings or beatings, taking out a belt and whipping them, or taking out an extension cord, an electrical cord and beating them, is an impact of African enslavement. That's an impact of African enslavement because, according to Dr. Joy DeGruy, we were whipped and beaten on auction blocks and on plantations and on lynching trees. We now pass this act on down from generation to generation. And so now what do? As a result of PTSS, or what Joy DeGruy calls post-traumatic slave syndrome, we now believe in beating our children. This is child abuse. This is child abuse. This is child abuse. And when you participate in acts of child abuse, you do nothing but contribute to mother wounds and father wounds in a child that then contribute to early death later on in life. A wonderful book that I would invite you to get, in addition to Dr. Joy DeGruy's book, is also Black Families in Therapy, which also highlights the ways in which we need to resist child abuse and resist unhealthiness in our families today. Family, what are you called to be and do? The ultimate reflective question for us. What are you called to be and do in light of child abuse? How can you practice healthy self-care when you're scared, mad, or sad? How can you reflect on God's grace and mercy and be careful not making promises to the Lord when you're sad, mad, or scared, but practice healthy self-care, making sure that you're not doing anything that includes sacrificing the life of other bodies, also that you could do this in the name of the Lord to keep up with the commandment. Thank you, my brothers and sisters. I look forward to our time together next time. Blessings to you. Share this video with someone you know who has been impacted by child abuse so that we can help our brothers and sisters receive healing, hope, and wholeness. God bless you, family. Take care.